we have a breakdown, I think, that you can date in different countries from the late 70s to the 90s of an old social pact that characterized the 30 glorious years after World War II. I mean, let me use an old-fashioned word, but I think it's still useful. That pact was between capitalists and workers. Call it New Deal, call it social democracy, whatever. It was a pact in which you had basically productivity growing quite fast, and the rate of growth of wages fundamentally indexed on productivity. You had growth of demand, of internal demand. You had an expansion of public services. I mean, it was the nice face of capitalism, if you will. That ended. It ended, and you have, in some countries, you can date symbolically date when it ended. I mean, in the US, you date it with the defeat of the strikes, of the traffic control in England. You date it with the defeat of the miners. In Italy, still in 1980, you date it with the defeat of the workers' occupation of Fiat. In other countries, like this country, it has been softer, and at least to my knowledge, you don't have a date in which you can say this is the symbolic end of the pact. For the little I know, possibly in this country is the Schroeder government, that from the political side ends the old pact. In any way, come as it may, you have some long patterns. One is the industrialization, even if at different rates. Stagnant wages and the divergence between productivity and growth and wage growth. A declining labor share, massive surge in corporate profit, especially financial one, soaring inequality, polarization and growing number of part-time jobs, gig economy, etc., which we'll consider back when we talk about technology. Let's look at a bit more detail. I mean, this is, I'm talking mainly about the United States because the United States is absolutely striking the dynamics, but you more or less you have it in all Western countries. You can see that until the late 70s, productivity and wages grow perfectly in line. Then you have got a disjuncture. Even within the workers, I mean, even having a very broad definition of what a worker is. I mean, these data include manager, not the CEOs, but the top managers. You have a part that sees basically stagnant or falling real wages, and another part that sees a decent growth in wages. I mean, again, this polarization of the workforce you find in all the countries. This is, I'm talking about the period from when there are the data from the 80s to the 2012, 2015, because this is the breaking point. You have a decline of manufacturing share, again at different rates, but consistent everywhere. I mean, many of the things that I'm saying mimic what Esther was saying already. I mean, Esther focused on an extreme case of the same pattern, but it is the same music. You have a surge of profits, dramatic. And this is associated with the fall in unionization of the labor force. This is especially the case of the US, not Northern Europe, not Central Europe, not Germany, I mean, not Germany and not, but again, if I understand well, the union become more tamed and compromising. One fundamental dimension in this dynamics is the rentification of the economy. Not only you've got a change in the slices of the share that go to the capitalist written large and the worker written large, but the share of rents that goes to, that is a part of profits, again, written large, increases enormously for different reasons. I mean, you have creation of artificial scarcity by redefinition of property right. The exclusion, it is the restriction of the right to use exactly non-rentified assets. And even more serious, the fact that what were considered before non-market universal rights, health, education, justice, become an object of exchange, an object of rent-seeking. This is part of the ideological part of that, and the justification and the political drive is neoliberalism, of course. And neoliberalism is more than an economic philosophy. In fact, is a sort of metastasis that invests the entire society. And even the common language. I mean, we are university professors, and now we have a supply of knowledge and a demand of knowledge. You have got to be joking. I mean, we are there to serve a right of the people to get educated. There is no supply, no demand. The same with health. Well, in Italy we are very advanced, so we also sell and buy court rulings. We have been doing that for quite a while. I mean, we are even beyond that. Rentification implies the dispossession from rights to decent pay, decent housing, decent pension, decent care. This is associated with an explosive financialization. That, I mean, the composition of the financialization is different among countries, but still the trend is there everywhere. You might remember, the older of you might remember the sort of taxonomy variety of capitalism. Well, the variety of capitalism is restricted, is getting more and more restricted under the pressure, the leveling pressure of neoliberalism. So, for example, the space of welfare state is reduced because it gets financialized. The provision of pension and life insurance is private. And in fact, pension funds are a monster that is eating a good part of the real economy and make it even more short-termist. One could say that, well, you have a pension fund, you've got a long time horizon. No. The active funds are there to gain on the margin for tomorrow or even tonight. Then, I mean, part of this rent is pure finance, you remember the derivative, etc. Part, we heard yesterday from Barbara Fritz, are interest rates that both go from developing country people to capitalists paying state asset at extremely high real interest rate, and partly goes from developing countries to developed countries. Houses, of course. An interesting aspect is the increasing role in these rents of intellectual property right. You know the story. You have to increase intellectual property right because this increases the incentive to innovate. Is totally wrong. It's totally wrong. I mean, the increase in patenting is an increase in the rents that accrue to big pharma, full stop. And a big case to the point is the COVID crisis and the response that the state were given. I mean, remember that before the COVID crisis, say in the quarter of a century before the COVID crisis, the percentage of vaccine and new antibiotics approved by the Food and Drug Administration in the US was 6%. Nobody cared about vaccines. Also because they were produced under conditions of relatively open science. This, of course, changed with the emergency of COVID, and we poured an enormous, meaning the government of the US and the European Commission, poured an enormous amount to this big pharma that found a rich plate, and they jumped on it. Anyway, more recently, the foregoing dissolution of the socio-economic pact characterizing the glorious decades goes together with technological advancement, new technology, AI, robotization. This is I don't have time to enter into the detail of that. I mean, we should not be too worried on the massive labor displacing effect, at least in the short, medium term, due to new technologies. In fact, artificial intelligence is not very intelligent at all. And still a robot cannot clean a toilet. So, I mean, there is a long way to go. There is another domain in which artificial intelligence is increasingly important. And this is social control. Social control both in the workplace and outside the workplace. I mean, think of China. In China, you have got even sort of license IDs in which you lose points if I don't know, you go in the wrong class on the fast train, not to talk about if you try to Google Dalai Lama or Tiananmen. This is, and think of nearer to us, Amazon. Amazon, increasingly the Amazon facilities are, you have got the person that is an appendix to the computer. And the computer, I mean, controls what this guy does, or this girl does, picking up and... so, in fact, I mean, the big problem is not the labor displacement about which, I mean, several economists talk, but is the transformation of labor relations and social relations more generally. So we are going to have, if this trend continues, a sort of a digital Taylorism without the old compromise of Fordism. And a sort of management, people managed by algorithms. Well, what I've said so far in the diagnosis of the Polycrisis neglects three major processes, but I don't have time to talk about them. One is the growing globalization and increasingly the delinking between the political domain and the economic one. You have globalized capitalism that is the international, capitalists are real internationalists, I mean, much more than the workers. And even more so, financial capitalists. While this induces a progressive restriction of the domain upon which national or supranational politics intervenes. With that, you have got an increasing delinking between the popular representation and the law child of decision-making. You have got an international technocracy that decides, and decides, and there is only a little nuisance that people still vote. And this is a big, little problem in the sense that, say, if people don't vote well, like in France, I'm paraphrasing Bertolt Brecht after the insurrection here in Berlin, in East Berlin, and he said sarcastically, the party, if the party finds that the people does not agree with the party, should reform the people. And it is a bit like that nowadays in a generalized way. I mean, look at the Draghi report on Europe, and it is clear. We have the weakening of the hegemonic empire, and we hope not, but possibly the drive to the so-called Thucydides trap. In the sense that Thucydides tells the story that when Athens had the opportunity to attack Sparta, and they didn't, they lost the hegemony for a long time. This, I mean, the American temptation to increase at least the friction, I'm not sure if this is heading to war, but is there and is worrying. Finally, we have the acceleration of environmental crisis, and we are possibly near the tipping point of no return. What to do? And I take the last 2 minutes, one or 2 minutes. I think that we are at the crossroad between a sort of, you remember the film Blade Runner, in which you had a sort of techno-feudalism controlling society and the lumpen proletariat, the majority of the people. This is, I mean, I'm pushing it far, but this is one possibility. The other possibility is what Keynes was dreaming, what the economic possibility for our grandchildren, saying, now with the new technology, we'll divide labor more equally, and we'll work doing boring things for 2 days a week, and for the rest we play, we write poems, whatever. If you ask me to put the probabilities, you understand what I some difficult and urgent proposals, and here I'm finishing. One, all policies require the reappropriation of sovereignty by the loci of representation and the sterilization of the dominant military industrial technocracies. Otherwise, you don't do anything. I mean, after all, the Americans had their revolution 2 centuries ago, no taxation without representation. Now we are going back to the no taxation, to the taxation without representation. Redress the power balance between social classes and reverse the current explosion of inequalities. Again, you need the first thing to do this second. Otherwise, you are unable to do it. And at the end, what do you want? I mean, I think a vast and socially just Green New Deal with the depth and the urgency of a war. I mean, or let me put it in a more provocative way, take policy away from the hands of the economist. The economist... The economists do cost-benefit analysis, do this kind of silly things. War are too serious a business to be left to the market. The climate, the injustice are too serious business to be left to the market. And one has got to set the objective, and you say, as you say, I want to win the war, you say, I want to win the war on climate. And this is, I end here.